This episode is brought to you by our free website startup from Church Media HQ. It seems that with many popular website platforms out there, you are paying them for the privilege to build your own website. There's very little, if any, service and support, and you're pretty much just on your own. At Church Media HQ, our team does all the heavy lifting by setting up and providing ongoing support for your church's website. And of course, there's no risk to you because we actually start the design of your website for free. There's no credit card required, and you only pay if you like what you see. So get our team started on your new website for free today at churchmediahq.com/web. That's churchmediahq.com/web. Well, today's guest is Dean Heasley of Burrow Business Labs right here in my hometown of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Dean has taught me a lot about websites, web presence in general, things like SEO, local Google business listings, social media, email marketing, and we talk about a lot of that in our conversation. Dean is really an expert, a master of his craft, if you will, and so I know that you are going to be greatly helped by my conversation with Dean, so let's get right to it. My name is Luke Clayton. I'm your host. Thanks for being with us, and welcome to Church Media HQ. So you've got the process here.
Yes.
What do you officially call this?
So we call this is very clever, the Get More Customers Marketing Formula.
Wow, that's mind blown. Is there, before we dive into it, is there a place where you can find this? Like, do you have it as like a downloadable PDF anywhere or on the website or anything?
So burrowbusinesslab.com, that's
Okay.
BORO businesslab.com.
Yeah.
It's on there somewhere, probably under resources. Mm-hmm. If not, it's on the homepage. And
I'll find the link. I'll throw in the show notes. That's kind of the easy shortcut there.
The easy way?
Yeah.
I like it. I like the easy way. And so, one of our mantras is clear before clever. And we actually probably spent way more time thinking about a clever title, and we just couldn't come up with one that kind of worked with the whole science theme that we have. And so finally it was, all right, it's the Get More Customers Marketing Formula. Because when you say that to somebody, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So I'm sensing a little StoryBrand in there. Have you connected with StoryBrand at all?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the whole clear, and I mean, I love StoryBrand. I mean, I follow it.
Donald Miller's fantastic.
Yeah, Donald Miller. Have you been to any workshops or anything?
I have not, no.
Okay.
So I can tell you when I read the entire book in one day.
Yeah.
3 years ago, my oldest was really into Pokemon. And he wanted to go to a regional tournament. And I'm like, oh, whatever, if this is something you want to do, go ahead, we'll go. So I drove him to Roanoke, 7 hours away, and So have you ever been to anything like this?
No.
So I was.
So this is like a Pokemon.
It's card game.
Card game, yeah. Okay, card game.
Where you go.
I forget there's a card game. I'm thinking immediately like Pokemon Go, the app.
So there's different Pokemons. There's like Pokemon for the Switch, which you can play like against somebody else, and it's more like a traditional video game. And then there's the card game, which is what my son was into, because we tried to limit digital stuff, or we did. Now they're older. It's inescapable.
Yeah.
But
after 2020, it's all this.
Yeah, exactly. So we went, and he was going to play cards. He had built his deck and all this stuff, and I didn't realize the demographic of Pokemon competitors was mostly middle-aged men. And so I show up in this arena, and first of all, I thought there was going to be like 20 kids there, and there's 1,000 people, most of which were grown men.
Wow.
I don't want to alienate anybody, but dude, there's other things to do than Pokemon. So I sat for 13 hours in an enormous auditorium, and I read StoryBrand, the whole book that day. So nice. That's my association with StoryBrand now.
So it wound up being a blessing in disguise there. You had to go to suffer through this Pokemon thing, but you did discover StoryBrand in the process.
Yes. So and I had fun with my son, and he appreciates that I drove 7 hours and we spent 2 nights so that he could spend a day playing Pokemon. Awesome. But StoryBrand, back on marketing track. StoryBrand is fantastic. I love it. It's simple. And the thing I love about it, if I had to summarize it into one thing, would be that it tells the marketer to make the customer the hero.
Yep, that's huge.
It is, and especially as like marketing people, most of us have an overblown sense of our own importance.
Yeah.
When you think about it from the StoryBrand perspective, I'm not the hero. Mm-hmm. I'm helping the hero. My customer is the hero. Yeah. Right. Yes. Yeah. I love it. I absolutely love it.
And I mean, we've talked about it plenty on the podcast, but it's still something churches especially struggle with it because the hero's Jesus, right?
Right.
And he is, but
sure.
When you're doing your marketing, and I've tried to reframe it a little bit to maybe put in a little more speak that they understand. It's maybe not calling the hero, just if nothing else, though, put them at the center of your marketing efforts. Use pronouns like you instead of we and me and us. I mean, make it about them. Like, what are you going to do? What can you do, if you will, that communicates the value that your church provides for this person?
Yes.
And so, but yeah, it all stems from the StoryBrand concept. So you came up with something that was clear and clever. Or clear over clever.
Clear over clever, yes.
And it is. I mean, when you first introduced it to me before we started recording, I was like, oh yeah, that sounds actually super interesting.
Yeah.
And you gave me a quick overview of it, and I was like, I mean, yeah, granted, I'm kind of in the space a little bit, so I understand the language, but you didn't even use like, language. I mean, you were just like, we do this first and this first. Like, oh, that sounds really good. And as I may or may not have heard, I don't know if it'll make the cut here, but I may be doing business with you here pretty soon. So who knows here? Anyway, so it's working, is what I'm saying.
Clear over clever.
So yeah, let's walk through this process though.
Sure.
So like 7 steps, right?
Yeah, 7 steps. And a lot of this, we geared this towards local businesses. I don't know when we started recording, so I may be repeating myself, but local businesses, this is really for local business. So if you've got like an e-commerce site or you're selling an info product, this is not the order.
Yeah.
Right? This is the order for a local business that has a physical place, and they do business with people in a certain geographic region, Nashville or Middle Tennessee or Murfreesboro or whatever. So that's what works for them. And the first thing is claim your Google My Business page. This is something I scream from the mountaintops, and most business owners don't understand the importance of it until I say 3 times as many people are going to see your information on Google Maps as are ever going to end up at your website. So you should, if you're doing math right, you should spend 3 times as much energy on your Google My Business page as you should on your website.
Yeah.
Now, there is an ecosystem that's created there between the two. So you have to have a good website to do well in Google Maps, and you have to do well in Google Maps to have your website rank. But if I were starting a business from scratch and I had nothing other than the name of my business, the very first thing I would do would be claim my business on Google, My Business.
Okay.
And it's easy. You go to business.google.com and you start the process, and it is so simple. Many people don't do it.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting because, and again, now let me just clarify, and you may have said this, is that your recommendation for any business, or for like a local business in particular? Which a local business in this case would be like a church. Okay?
Yes.
You are a local, I don't know of a church that's church online is a thing now, but just about every church I know of is hubbed somewhere, and you're reaching a local community.
Yes, absolutely. Churches absolutely have to do this if they want to be able to reach people. And I mean, I grew up in church. My parents went to church. Their parents, everybody were church.
You're from the South, aren't you? Yeah.
Originally Pittsburgh area.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so, but I mean, we're church people.
Yeah.
So we've always just kind of gone to a church. But I have spoken to many people recently that found their church by Googling, which to me, that is mind-bogglingly silly, but it's happening.
Yeah.
And I mean, these are people that weren't Christians, they're new Christians, and they realize, I need to find a place to plug in. What do I do? I mean, if you want a pizza, you get on Google. If you want a church, you get on Google. Yeah. So churches need to have a good Google My Business claimed verified, optimized, all of that stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, I would say too, talking about if you are a new Christian or you're new to church and you just, church would be a good idea or whatever reason, you're not necessarily caring about, well, what do they believe specifically?
Right.
And, what's their worship style and these things that churches tend to think are really important. And not to say that there's not a reason to care about that stuff, but probably the thing I would say that they care about most is how close is it to my house?
Yeah.
And that's where the local business listing comes in.
Right. It absolutely does. I mean, proximity to searcher is the number one ranking factor for a local business. And I just read a statistic recently that like 55%, it's over half of all of searches on Google have local intent now. Yeah. And it used to be much smaller, but it's growing, I think, because of COVID and people are scared and people's circle of geography is naturally shrinking. So does that mean that like they're searching for, churches in Nashville instead of what, what I'm saying? Like they're searching more, they're making their search terms to be more specific to like in my area. So yes, they're making their search terms more specific, but also Google knows when somebody has local intent. Yeah. Okay. So if somebody searches for hamburger place, they know that the person's not looking for like, what's the best hamburger place in the world? They're looking for what's the best one near me. And so those local intent searches are now over 50% of all searches done, period, which is massive. Yeah. Yeah. So basically then getting back to this local business listing, you are saying if you are a local business organization, church, whatever, the first thing you need to do when you say, I want to start a church or business is go get your Google listing. Yes. That comes before like a web domain. Yes. Or your Twitter handle. Yes. Or a Facebook page or anything like that. Yes. Okay. Get your business on Google. And one of the reasons I believe this, one is you have to be available for people who are searching and you're going to show up in Google Maps. The second thing is Google loves Google. Yeah. So when you think about it that way, this is very, very high level here. Google looks for two things, authority and consistency. And because Google loves Google, what I do for my clients is I get their Google My Business listing set up first, and then I cut and paste that information into Facebook and LinkedIn and Apple Maps and Yelp so that it matches exactly, because Google's looking for consistency and Google wants everything else to match Google. Yeah. So, and it's very specific, like capitalization, spacing, punctuation. Oh, wow. Yes. It's not as 6, 7, 8 years ago, it used to be more important. Now it's not as important, but still, if your Google My Business listing is like 1, 2, 3 King ST period, make sure it's ST period in Facebook and Yelp and Apple Maps and not street spelled out. Yeah. Yeah. So, because another thing, and this may be off topic or getting ahead of ourselves, but that's why, I've heard that, getting your stuff on YouTube is also, if you're going to be doing content like that, making sure it's on YouTube, because YouTube's owned by Google and Google loves Google. And so therefore, whenever you're doing or searching, it's going to favor, YouTube results, specifically in the video tab, but maybe even just in general. So yes. It makes sense that Google's going to give itself more authority. Yes, yeah. Exactly. So let's say somebody is looking to do they're like, hey, I don't think we've done that. How would they go about, doing the Google listing process? Sure. So it's very simple. You log into business.google.com. And then if you don't exist on Google at all, then you'll create your listing. Likely your stuff will be there, probably kind of messy, maybe with inaccurate information. You're going to have to claim it. And so still the same thing, business.google.com. But when you type in your information, your location may come up. Just click on that and hit claim. And then you'll go through a verification process that will involve usually Google mailing a postcard to your house or not to your house, but to your business or to your church, so that Google knows that the person verifying is actually at that physical location. And that helps them cut down on location spam. So get that Google listing then, and it sounds like it's not super difficult to do. No, you just now, but so that
I have done this years ago when I actually worked at a church full time. I actually did this, so it's been a long time. I mean, like probably 6 or 7 years. So I'm sure the process has changed a little bit and whatever. But they're going to mail you that postcard.
Yes.
Is it possible though for example, what if you go on there and like you're like, oh wait, my business has already been claimed? I've heard of that happening before.
Yes.
So
the way that you do that is there's a thing that you can do that says, I want to manage this business. And you click on that, and then there will be a little form that you fill out with like your name and your relationship to the business. And then you'll hit verify, and it will say a verification request has been sent to, and then it will give you like pieces of an email.
Gotcha.
So that it doesn't give away the whole email address, but it will let you know kind of who or what entity has claimed it. And then if nobody responds in 7 days, then you should be able to log back in and try to claim it yourself.
Okay.
So there are ways to get around it.
Okay.
I have been in situations where Google just doesn't want to do that. And then you have to get on chat and send them photos of the inside and the outside of the building and where they have the address on the street. It can be complicated, but 9 times out of 10, it's fairly simple.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is step one. Like if you're just, like I said, or even if you're a more established organization of any kind. I mean, whether you've done this, you need to do this if you haven't yet.
Yes.
Anything else about this step that's important to cover before we move on?
So this step, actually, Google My Business is the most important thing, but then making sure that your information is the same as it is in Google My Business in multiple different local directories. You can do this yourself, but it would be like a full-time job. So what Borough Business Lab does for our clients is we enter this information into a software program that pushes it out to, it's like 60 or 70 different local directories. And we make sure that your information is good on data aggregators, which is some techie thing. And we make sure that your data is adequate so that you'll show up when somebody does a voice search, which more and more people have their wiretaps in their house.
Yeah. You see, you're looking at mine over here.
Hey, wiretap.
Yeah.
And so we make sure that, if somebody says, hey, name of your speaker, I don't want to say it because then it's going to activate.
Yeah, it'll activate every device in the world. Yeah.
But we'll make sure that your information is easily accessible to somebody searching by voice as well as with their keyboard.
Yeah. I mean, when you consider, obviously Google being kind of like the king of these local listings, but when you consider the Facebook, the Yelp, Apple Maps, and then, like you said, these voice activated devices as well.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
There are.
And I'm sure there's other smaller ones that we're not. Yahoo has an equivalent, don't they? I mean,
yes. Yahoo. And there's hundreds. There's Dex and Silex, there's just all these weird, goofy ones that no one's ever heard of.
But the point is, start with Google, get that one first, and then maybe claim as many of them as you can on your own. And then if you really want to get serious, maybe hire someone like yourself who knows how to, make it happen efficiently and quickly and all that stuff.
Yes.
So, okay. So your local business listing, primarily with Google and with others. What's step 2?
Step 2 is have a good website.
Okay.
Which Borough Business Lab doesn't do a lot with churches. We really try to focus on the for-profit sector. So having somebody like you is so valuable to have a good website. And, I heard recently someone very smart, she used to be in charge. She was the global VP of digital for Mattel. And she said something profound. She was like, there's no more SEO. There's customer experience optimization. And I was like, yeah, I disagreed at first, but then I thought about it. And Google is moving more towards ranking based on whether or not the customer, which is the searcher, is finding what they're looking for and spending time on the website. And so that's becoming a huge ranking factor. So by having a good technical base for your website, making sure that it's optimized, making sure that it has good, fresh content on a monthly basis, all of those things really work towards helping you rank. So having a good website also that connects with your Google My Business listing, that is the second step. So a good customer friendly, easy to understand website.
Okay.
Yeah.
So websites is something that, from what I've observed in the past, well, I guess we could argue in the past 18 months, but more or less in the past decade or so, I feel like the role of a website has changed.
Yes.
So whereas a website used to be a hub of information, if you will, and not to say that websites don't need to have your information.
Sure.
But for example, I'll talk church talk because that's what I understand. It would be like, okay, if you've got an event coming up at your church, you're going to make sure it's on your website. Whereas now it's like, well, it wouldn't hurt for it to be there, but you probably should be putting that out on Facebook.
Yes.
Like talking about your events, like Facebook's really going to be, create an event there or a post or whatever. And so what I'm getting at is I will still get, churches and then either other non-churches that I've worked with that are kind of still stuck in this mindset of kind of like the old way of a website, if you will.
Right.
And so what I've seen, and I think I may have learned this from you, I can't remember, but it was like the statistic was like 95% of people never leave the homepage when they come to your website. So basically the idea is just focus on your homepage. Everything else, okay, not to say it does not matter,
sure,
but if 5% matters, your homepage 95% matters. So anyways, I'll let you talk to that a little bit as far as like what makes a good website.
Sure. So a good website does a few things. And a good website, when I talk about a good website, I'm talking about two different things. I'm talking about one from Google's perspective and two from the customer's perspective. Okay. Now, ultimately, I think 10 years down the road, those are going to be very, very similar. But right now, there's some overlap. Okay. Not all completely overlapped. So from Google's standpoint, a good website is going to have name, address, phone number, hours, map, contact info, form fill, all of the stuff that is going to make it valid for Google. There's going to be some stuff behind the scenes called schema markup so that Google doesn't have to actually interpret the website. So in other words, Google used to crawl a website and see 10 numbers in a row and think that's probably their phone number. With schema markup, it's code you put in the back end of the website that you can tell Google, hey, Google, here's the phone number.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
So it kind of serves it up for Google so it uses less computing energy. So lots of technical stuff from Google's standpoint. Making sure that it's fast to load and all of that. From a customer standpoint, it has to have the information that they're looking for, which kind of goes back to what you were saying. And the way that I would describe it is, 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, a website had to have all the information on the website. Now the website has to point adequately at multiple different platforms that have the information. So Facebook, Instagram for the kids, Vimeo or YouTube Live for the sermons, and then, Buzzsprout or whatever you're using for podcasts. Yeah. So it has to link out adequately to all of these different platforms. But the importance of the website still can't be understated. You're never going to rank well in Google without a website. And not having a website is a massive credibility hit. Yeah. Like I would hesitate to do business with a business that did not have a website.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and because I haven't, if you will, thought that a lot, but I have had some say, well, we got a pretty good presence on Facebook and we have a good Facebook page and whatever, so we don't think we really need a website.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I think that like you said, like you're saying, the website's really important, but the role it plays might be different than what you're thinking. And, because here's the thing that eats me up. If I go to a church website in particular, and it's like, it is telling me when the next church picnic is and all this stuff, but I can't find, well, it used to be just 2, now it's really 3. If I can't find 3 things, it's a deal breaker because I know that people are looking for the same thing. First of all, your service times. When do you meet? Where are you located? And then now, like I said, the third one I've added, especially since after, the whole COVID and the past, like I said, 18 months, is how do I watch or listen to your sermons online?
Yes.
Though, and it is amazing to me how, usually now the watcher service thing, everybody understands the importance of that, so they have it there. But it is amazing to me how many websites I'll go to, and I've either got to go to a whole other page, or I've got to just scour the web page to find that service times and your location.
Right.
And I've had people say, well, I want to make sure that our latest events are up to date and whatever. It's like, no, you need to make sure that you've got that basic stuff down, that you can find you can find where it's at, and you've got the service times. Because like I said, I could care less if you're talking about your latest church picnic on your website. If I'm new, I don't care.
Right.
I'm probably going to come to church, not the picnic.
Yes.
Most likely. And so, anyways, that role has shifted. But yes, the importance of the website, I mean, you've got to have it. And like you said, the credibility with search engines is a huge part of it. So
yes.
So you got to have a website.
And those three things that you're talking about are all answers to the question, how do I interact with you? Like, and if I want to interact with you in person, how and when do I do that? Where and when? Or if I want to interact with you digitally, where and when? So, when you think about it from a very high level, that's ultimately that's the information that you're trying to give to the person, to the searcher, is how can I interact? Yeah.
Well, and so to take that a step further, what would you say then is the more or less the purpose, like the primary objective of a website? Like if it was like, hey, I want, and really, it doesn't matter if it's a church, a business, whatever. When you visit this website, and it's a new visitor, if I can get you to do one thing, what would you say that is?
Right. So for my clients, it's how do we get the searcher to contact you? And then I give my clients a choice. Do you want them to fill out a form, which the fewer fields, the better? Name, email, phone. Yeah.
Maybe phone number.
Right. Or clickable phone number. So like I've got an HVAC client. Upper right corner is the most important real estate on any website. So his phone number is clickable in the upper right corner, and it's a different color than everything else on that page, because that's what we want people to do. Most people will not even scroll on the homepage. They'll see whatever's above the fold, and what they see will build their trust enough to call or not call, or to fill out the form or not fill out the form.
Because I mean, we were like saying 95% don't leave the homepage. Well, it's like, I wouldn't know the percentages, but most of them don't even, like you said, scroll.
Right.
They just, whatever loads there. I mean, that's how impatient we are nowadays.
Yeah. So we want to make sure that whatever that client wants the person to do, which in most cases for a local business, it's call. We want to make sure that is front and center.
And I would argue, what I've argued for churches, especially, again, given the landscape of church changing so much over the past 18 months, is I would argue that your number one objective is actually to make a personal connection.
Yes.
You want that visitor to connect with you. So it doesn't matter if that's, because I don't see this a lot. I don't see churches using what the business world would talk about as maybe a lead generator.
Right.
Which, the downloadable PDFs and the whatever. I mean, you see those all, get your name and email, we give you this gift. Well, and the thing I've told churches, I'm like, I don't know of a church that doesn't have some type of, if you visit our church physically, they've got some type of gift or some type of welcome packet. Like, hey, here's a mug or, a little bag of goodies for your kids or whatever. And my thing is, why not advertise that on your website? Like, hey, if you visit us, you're going to claim a gift. We've got a gift for you. Click here, get your name and email, because now you can begin the follow-up process, if you will, even if they never physically set foot in your church, even if they bail and they don't come that Sunday. Well, now you've got their contact info and you can follow up with them, and whether you want to do that personally or through an automated way, it doesn't matter. You've got their contact info. Yeah. And so that's the argument I always make for churches is, there's a lot of things that are important. This is important. Like I said, we talk about the service times, the location. That's important information to have there. But as far as a call to action, you want to connect with that person.
Right.
You want, and it's the same for businesses. You want them to contact you, whether it's a phone number or some type of contact form. You want that. So really good to understand the role of the website there and what makes it effective.
Yes. And in my mind, the role is hub, just like you, a hub of information, and inform people how you want them to interact with you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we've gone through the first 2 steps.
Yep.
Are we ready for step 3?
Step 3
is
go for it. Social media. Mm-hmm. I'm 45, so my internal brain mechanisms say social media is not as important as it is, but it is very important. I mean, for my business, we've gotten leads from Instagram, which is crazy to me. Like, are you looking for a digital marketing company on Instagram? Yeah. And so we
talk about organic leads.
Like just, wow. Just people saying, "Hey, I saw this reel that I didn't make it." Yeah. We hired a recent MTSU grad, and her first week in the office, she was like, "I'm going to start a Borough Business Lab TikTok." And I was like, "That's fine, but no dancing."
Yeah.
And so she was like, "Fine, I won't dance. I won't do the TikTok dance." But she uploads these things she makes on TikTok to Instagram, and to my amazement, we get leads from those because they're all about marketing and SEO and whatever. And but social media is very important because people are social. And because of COVID, we've physically retracted from being social with other people. So that socialization is happening now more and more online. Mm-hmm. So what we do for social media is, I think, different than what a lot of businesses do. Our social media product is actually called 3 Posts a Week. And it's simply designed.
By the way, awesome name again. 3 posts a week.
Clear over.
But hey, I know exactly what that means. Well done.
That's right. And so we post 3 times a week, really just to keep a business credible. Because people will find you on Google and then they'll think, oh, maybe I'll look and see what their Facebook page is like. Do they have pets, or are they on Facebook? Mm-hmm. So what we do is designed to maintain credibility for a local business. It's not necessarily geared towards achieving a positive ROI. Mm-hmm. It's geared towards bolstering that digital footprint and that digital credibility. Mm-hmm. But it's still very important. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, depending, for more white collar stuff. Mm-hmm. And so, social media. I obviously, at my agency, I don't handle it because I don't even know. Yeah. I don't even know what TikTok is.
I'm 30 and I'm awful at social media. I should be, because I'm technically a millennial, so I should love it.
Right.
And I don't.
Right.
And so, honestly, if I'm confessing, and my social media presence in general is not great. And I know it's not maybe your area of expertise, but with that 3 posts a week, is there a specific type of content you're posting? Like, is it images, videos, just like text? What is it?
Yeah. So for the most part, it's images with text, because if it's just text, nobody's going to read it.
Yeah, it's basically nothing.
Facebook is going to serve it to like 1% of the people anyway. So usually it's images and video with either a graphic overlay or some type of text. And some of them get really positive engagement. Mm-hmm. We just started working with a guy who is a basketball coach, like a personal trainer for basketball. And we've done some posts that have really done well for him. Mm. So, it's social media is really, it's not something that I focus my time on, but it's designed for maintaining that digital credibility.
Yeah. Well, I like what you said with that 3 posts a week, a clever name, but also just a from what I've observed, again, not a social media expert, but in terms of just content output, just a strategy of consistency, 3 posts a week, it doesn't sound like a lot, and I know like big brands are out there. They're posting 3 times an hour, you know? But 3 posts a week is manageable, if you will, for just about anybody. And like you said, it gives credibility. So when somebody goes to your feed, they say, oh, hey, they're actually posting stuff.
Right.
I'll give them a follow because I know they're actually going to, be giving me content. Yes. Whereas if you go to some social media, users, maybe such as myself, you'll see, hey, they haven't posted in years. So you're probably not going to follow me. I mean, hey, that's my bad.
Right.
But I do think, again, clever name, but also a great approach there. Like if you can just strive for that 3 posts a week, I can see how that's just a very doable goal. But like you said, it's going to give you that credibility. Maybe not give you, it's probably not going to get crazy, huge followers or whatever out of it. But you're going to at least be credible, and that's everything online.
Yes, and as far as the specific types of content, the way that I break it down in my mind, I don't know if Macy does. She's our social media person. I kind of look at it like a Shakespearean sonnet, how the rhyming, A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. Well, the first three kind of, I'm such a nerd for remembering this. I mean, this is like 9th grade stuff. The first three, what are they called? Quatrains?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm vaguely familiar with, you said sonnet, and then after that I was like, I don't really know.
So anyway, A, B, C, D, E, and F should all be some type of content that benefits the viewer. Mm-hmm. So a link to another blog post, a picture of a review from a client, something that is not promotional. Mm-hmm. And then GG, the 2 at the end, should be something promotional, like, hey, we've got this on sale or whatever. So the bottom line, the majority of the posts should be to the unselfish benefit of the viewer. Mm-hmm. And then maybe 10% of those posts are held back for promotional of the company.
Yeah, because that's the temptation that I fight, that anybody out there business is going to fight is, I just need to be promoting. But I mean, the way I've heard it is like, jab, what is it? Jab, jab, right hook or something like that, where, you're just kind of getting it out there to provide value, remind people you're still there. And then, every however many it is, you actually, hey, here's the sale. And again, to translate that for churches, the way I see the biggest misuse of social media is making it an announcement board. I know I talked about earlier how it's a good idea to use Facebook to get the word out about some type of an event or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if that's all you're doing, then people are like, it just starts to become, something that they don't notice. They just kind of don't care. But if you're giving them something value, and in the church world, it's like, this is easy. Like, look up a Bible verse.
Oh yeah, right.
I mean, look up a Bible verse and post it.
Source material.
Yeah. You got sermons that are preached every week. You have no shortage of content. But give them, hey, here's a verse to help you. Here's a quote from last Sunday's sermon, whatever. And then, and by the way, we also have the picnic coming up. Right. Which I keep talking about the picnic. The picnic sounds personally lame to me, but some people out there might like it.
Yes. I agree. It should be limited in its self-serving, whatever you put out there.
Yeah.
But it's funny you said content. I never really thought of this. Digital as a whole is so content focused, and a church's whole role is to create content. Mm-hmm. Like that's what they do. Yeah. They create content. So the church world, I think a lot of people feel like, well, digital's moving here and church is back here, but it's actually when the church plays into what digital wants, it's a perfect match.
Yeah, it really is.
Because the church creates content for people to consume, and it should do that. And that's what digital wants, is that constant stream of content and interaction. And a church should be interactive. I mean, that's the whole purpose of discipling, is you interact with people and you help them in their walk. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's when you look at the the mega churches, or whatever you want to call them, the fast growing churches whether it's in your community or nationally. I guarantee you, go look up their website, their social media, and I would say 99% of the time they've got an excellent digital presence. Yes. They are taking that content that they're producing every weekend. Right. And they're, chopping it up and making it into social posts and putting it on podcasts and whatever to get people continually digitally engaged. And now, and this is a whole other, kind of soapbox, so I'm not going to get on it for too long, but now I think churches even have to be willing to accept the concept of a digital only, attendee or member or whatever. Like there are going to be people who, first of all, maybe I'm convinced there are going to be people that are convinced it's never safe to go outside. So they're going to be trapped in their house for the rest of their life. And then there's people that, hey, maybe they just, maybe they're distant. Maybe they like your church, but they're not in your area. It doesn't make sense for them to drive to where you're at. Or maybe they just don't want to. Maybe they would rather go out on the boat on Sundays. And I know in the church world, that's not ideal. I get that. But at the end of the day, what's the mission? Well, it's to engage people. It's to disciple people. And whether you're doing that physically, even though, I would be a believer that physically is the best environment for it. Yeah. I would not go as far to say that it is impossible, maybe slightly more challenging, but not impossible to do it digitally.
Sure.
And so, anyways, a little bit of soapbox, like I said. I get on it from time to time. I'm going to get back off it. But all that to say, your social media and your digital presence here, that's what we're talking about. Taking advantage of that, tapping into it.
Right.
Now, to be clear, to jump back onto social media for just a second before we move on, what you're talking about organic social media, right? I mean, by and large,
yes,
in this step.
Not paid. Yes, this is all just organic. We're really, for Burrow Business Lab, we're just posting literally 3 posts a week.
Yeah, 3 posts a week.
Yeah.
Which, again, I can't get over how fantastic your simplicity is in your marketing. So, okay, so let's move on beyond social media then. Let's hit, step 4 now?
Yes, step 4 is an email list. So I was never a huge believer in building an email list until my business partner, Jeremy Lee, told me, he explained it to me this way. He said, your email list is your biggest digital asset because all of your other digital assets you're building on platforms that somebody else owns.
Yeah, I've heard it said you're renting.
Yes. Yeah. So Google can de-index you for any reason at any point, and there's no recourse. Facebook can shut your feed down because they don't like the color of your logo. Yeah. Instagram.
Or because you're the sitting president of the United States.
Exactly.
Did I go there? Moving on.
I was thinking that. They didn't like the color of his hair.
Yeah. That was
so you're at their mercy. With email, that is a digital asset that you will always own. And you can always reach out to those people if there is some kind of issue with Google or Facebook or TikTok or Snapchat or whatever. You can just send those people an email and say, hey, we're moving over to this new profile or whatever. So email is super important. And I think especially for a church, that emergency communication is so important. I mean, the last 18 months, we would wake up Sunday morning for church and check our email and say, are we in person or are we not? Are we digital today? Most days it was digital. So that email list is super important. And it's something that even a local business can monetize if you don't overdo it. Just like social media with, the goofy Shakespearean sonnet.
Yep.
I probably will not use that as an example anymore. So,
stick to clear and clever. Come
on. Clear, exactly.
Or clear, not clever.
Yes, clear over clever. So 10% of your emails, limit promotional emails to about 10% of what you do. But emails, very, very important. Yeah.
So, a lot of stuff there I think is important to understand. Like you said, it is crazy how we're at the mercy, if you will, of just the algorithms, first of all, but then just them, no joke. I mean, we literally did see, regardless of where you stand on, the sitting president of the United States, he basically had all his social media removed immediately.
Right.
And I mean, if they can do it to him, they can do it to anyone.
Exactly.
Granted, he had a big target on his back, but at the same time, it just shows you how much power they have. And I'm not here to talk about the ethics and the debate of it, but it's a fact nonetheless. And the way I've heard it put is that if you want to look at it this way, when it comes to investing, you invest in, you can invest, there's a lot of different brands, but essentially 2 ways you can invest. You can invest in like real estate and you can invest in the market.
Yes.
And when you invest in real estate, you're investing into assets that you actually own. And when you're investing in real estate, yeah, you own that, but at the same time, you're at the mercy of those, companies. You're at the mercy of Apple being successful or whatever stock that you've bought.
Right.
And yeah, real estate, sure, the market. The analogy doesn't necessarily cross over perfectly.
Sure.
However, when you're looking at your digital world, that email list, yeah, you really do own that. And whereas, but when it comes to these other, social media platforms, you need to diversify.
Yes.
You don't need to have all of your, I don't need to have and I know people like that. It's like, man, their entire marketing strategy is Instagram, and that's it.
Right. That's
and it's horrible because, again, all it takes is a suspension of your account or just for them to change the algorithms, which Facebook and Google love to do.
Right.
And now, you're essentially, you're screwed.
Yes.
And so, yeah, the email list thing I think is really important for any business, but I've even with churches had to get them to understand, like, look, you've got to do something with email. Now let's talk about content of emails. Do you have any advice or suggestion on what type of content is good to send to your list?
Yes.
What should, because you said same thing. You don't want to just be promoting all the time.
Right.
What can you do to provide people value with your email list?
So similar to your website, the emails that we send out to our clients are basically a digital recap of things that we've done or posted or said or have happened in the previous month. So, here's a picture of the picnic that you're such a fan of.
I love the picnic. I do love good food, so.
Yes, me too. Here is a link to the past 2 weeks' sermons. The youth group did a thing. Here's a link to their Instagram page where they put all their pictures. Just kind of a digital recap. And then people can choose whether or not they want to consume that information. So that's kind of what we put out. And then every now and then we'll put out a promotional thing like, Train AC has a fall special, 0% financing for 6 months, whatever. We can send those out. And because we don't overdo it and because it's something that people might be interested in, we typically don't have a lot of unsubscribes.
Yeah, sure.
But the way that we do email is we send out one email a month.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask about frequency because there's some I'll get daily emails from, weekly, month, and I've gone back and forth on. And again, it probably determines what type of content you're doing. There's probably a lot of factors there, but so you're doing it monthly there. Of course, I would say you kind of alluded to this already. If you're a church, well, you do have a weekly sermon, and you're probably pretty harmless in sending hey, here's what we send on Monday or Tuesday. Here's last week's sermon. Probably not going to get a ton of unsubscribes there,
right?
And there were spam complaints or whatever. But is there, as far as the frequency goes? Oh, well, I was going to ask: does this include funnels? Do you do anything with funnels? What's your as far as automated funnels and things like that?
Sure. So for Burrow Business Lab, what we do is we create a lead magnet. That's kind of the first month of what we're doing. We're setting up a lead magnet, and then the second month is integrating it into the email service provider and the website and making sure that all that works. And then as people start to download that, the email list grows, and then we send those emails on a monthly basis. So we're not creating a segmented funnel per se, and these are all the service contracts over here, and these are the people that had new installation over here. It's not really like that. It's more kind of a one size fits all. But the whole purpose of it is designed to build our clients' hard asset, which is their your example of real estate. It's really that digital asset that they own, that they will always own, that no big company can come in and take that away. Yeah.
And I'm assuming that you're to some extent also using social media to push people to the email list as well.
Yes.
At times, with the appropriate amount of balance there. Like you said, you don't want every post be about, hey, subscribe to our email list.
Sure.
But I'm assuming you're trying to convert some of that rental property or rented space to the actual space that you own there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And so, for our SEO packages, we create content. One of the social media posts that we'll post on a monthly basis is a link back to the content that we created for the website. So it's all, I really think of it as a digital ecosystem. And, if one is weak, the whole thing won't be super strong, but there's none that's perfect.
Yeah.
So we just try to focus on what's the most important and then grow from there, kind of in a tiered structure.
Because these steps are more or less priorities.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I do have to ask, why did you put maybe social media above email in that priority? Because I can see why some would say that needs to be swapped.
Because it takes such a long time to build the email list.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Social media is immediate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's more chance of a higher return on investment from social media than from the email list.
Gotcha.
So the email list is a necessity, but it is a long-term play.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. So the email list, I guess we're moving to step 5, right?
Yeah, step 5. And it's a good segue because I just started doing emails for a client recently. And the first email that we sent out was a request to their existing email list to leave them a positive review. And so that's number 5, is get positive reviews. Google is the priority, and then Facebook, and then Yelp. I'm not even going to go down the Yelp rabbit trail because they're not nice people, but they are necessary. And something I learned fairly recently is that, Apple and Bing don't have a review platform. So if you're one of the 15% of people that uses Safari or Bing as your search engine, and you're using it for local searches, the reviews from Yelp, that's going to be what shows up next to your business. So you do have to get some positive Yelp reviews.
Well, I think when you use the Apple voice assistant, because I don't know if you just heard, but she thought she heard her name and my watch was talking to me.
Right.
So I don't want to say it again, but the Apple voice assistant, I believe there, when you say, hey, hey, that person,
right.
Find local restaurants. I believe Apple Maps is integrated with the Yelp. Is that correct? Yeah. So that and Apple Maps, because of that Apple voice assistant, is a big one, at least in that mobile world, iPhone world or whatever. So yeah, I can see why Yelp is important.
And they're all intertwined. So we have one client who changed the hours of her restaurant, and they're unusual hours now. And every week I will go in and change them. And we just did a bunch of digging, and we found that the reason that Google keeps reverting them back is because her Yelp listing has the old hours in it from a different listing that had been kind of buried underneath the surface and had not been claimed. So, and like I said, that's part of that whole digital ecosystem where Google will pull information from other sources, and they might give that more of a priority than what you're telling it. So it all has to be consistent and work together. But as far as reviews go, I like to explain it this way. Google's first patent, before they were even Google, I forget what the name was based on ranking the contents of the internet, not on what was on the website, but what other websites said about a certain website. So Google, their whole process of ranking is based on third-party credibility or lack of credibility. And so with local search, the way that they do that, one of the biggest factors is reviews, because it's a real human saying positive or negative things about your business. So it's that third-party credibility that Google's looking towards when they're serving, church information to other people. I just met with somebody like 3 weeks ago, and she found her church based on a Google search, and she looked at reviews.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is crazy to me. But for new people, new Christians, that they're searching for churches in the exact same way they're searching for any other local business.
Yep.
So the review thing is so very, very important. And that's why for us, we don't charge separately for number 5. That's in with number 1.
Okay.
So if somebody were to...
So they're kind of one and the same in terms of the way you see it from a billing perspective.
Yes, exactly. So number 1 and number 5, we lump together for our services because those reviews are so important.
Gotcha.
And they're attached to those local directories. So it's Google, Facebook, Yelp. Well, those are where the information has to be similar. That's where we have to get reviews. They're very, very intertwined.
Yeah. So how do you, how do you go about getting them? I mean, I know you mentioned just asking for them, hitting up your email list, or maybe hitting that up on social media every once in a while about, hey, leave us a review. But do you have like a specific process or best practices or whatever, and how to get those?
Yes. So it depends on the volume of business that the client does. So let's say for a realtor, a good realtor is going to do 3 to 5 deals a month. My realtor clients, I just tell them, listen, when you close a deal, send me that person's name and email address, and I'll send them a request to leave you a review. We have some other clients that serve 200 or 300 people a week. And so on a weekly basis, they just send me a spreadsheet. I upload the spreadsheet with names and emails, and then we send out requests that way. So a kind of a good rule of thumb is 5 to 7% of the people that you ask to leave you a review are going to actually do it. Unless it's a super high touch situation, like with realtors. I mean, your realtor's handling $500,000 deal for somebody. It's going to be the biggest financial investment most people will ever make. So that person's got a lot of trust, and there's been a relationship built over time. So we coach our clients to ask in certain ways and at certain times. So we always want the ask to happen at the height of happiness for the transaction. So when the customer's brain is releasing all that dopamine and endorphins, ask for the review then. And the second thing is give a specific reason, like a numeric reason. For example, the email that we just sent out, we said, look, we have an aggressive goal to get to 35 5-star reviews by the end of August. Can you help us?
Wow. Yeah.
So give a very specific reason, even if it's a self-serving reason. The human brain is more inclined to answer and respond when a reason is given than just when a question is asked.
Yeah, and I can't help but think there's a part, especially somebody's going to leave you a review. It was probably someone who likes you. And I can't help but think that, going back to StoryBrand, they to some extent feel like a part of the story, and they want to have a part in this mission, if you will.
Yes.
Like, hey, you want to hit that 35 by the end of August? Boom, I'm in.
Right.
And count me in. Like you said, the 5 to 7% that actually do it, but that's going to be how they're thinking.
Yes.
Then as far as, obviously there's all these different places to review. There's Google, Yelp. Is Google, maybe you already said this, is it the most important?
Yeah.
Okay. So are you just kind of strategically asking, like, hey, this month we're going to ask for Google reviews, and next month we're going to ask for Yelp? Or
so we give every customer the option. We normally give them 3 buttons. One's Google, the top one is Google, and then Facebook, and then Yelp. When we have targeted specific review platforms, it's typically been Yelp, because Yelp, I think the average star rating on Yelp is 2.4. So people go to Yelp to complain. And so we don't want those negative reviews showing up in Apple and Bing. So if we have a client that's deficient in Yelp, then we'll do a campaign specifically for that. But most people will just leave it on Google. Gotcha. And then if it's in the hospitality industry, we throw in TripAdvisor as well, because that's pretty important.
Do you have, because I was talking to a guy years ago about they did a similar thing. They did a lot of local, ad listing and reviews. And I believe their approach at the time, at least, was they had when they asked for reviews, it was a form. And it was like, hey, go ahead and give us your review on this form. If it was like below 4 stars, they would redirect you to hey, here's just a place where you can kind of like air your grievances, and we'll see it, but it's not going to go public.
Right.
But if you did leave 4 or 5 stars, then it was like, hey, well, why don't you just do that here on Google? I mean, is that approach effective, or what are maybe some pros and cons of that approach?
So the pros are, it's a natural gateway for people to segment themselves out of leaving a negative review. which is good because then it makes more people leave a positive review and fewer people leave a negative review. The con is Google has technically said, if you do that, we're going to take your reviews away. I've never had it happen to a client, but I always kind of leave that up to the client. Most of them err on the side of, let's just leave kind of the thumbs up, thumbs down in there. Mm-hmm. But technically, Google has said, please don't do that.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I could see how it's a little bit, disingenuous because if you really do get people who had a bad experience, you're not allowing them to report it publicly, if you will.
Right.
So I can maybe understand the regulation there. I was just curious about what you thought about that approach. And like I said,
yeah. So we do that approach for our clients.
Okay.
Most of my clients will just not ask. Like if I get a spreadsheet and somebody had an obviously terrible time at their business, we just delete that person. We just don't ask them.
Yeah.
So most of the reviews that we get are positive. Most of the reviews that are negative that we get have not happened through the review platform. It's happened by someone just going to Google and putting them on blast anyway. Mm-hmm. And so we've got a process for handling those type of negative reviews.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So reviews, it's important to...
Very important.
And obviously we're speaking pretty specifically to local businesses here and local, but again, churches are going to fall in this category.
Yes.
So that was what, step 5?
Yes.
Anything else there before we move on to 6?
I will say, and this is not something that we do, but the sentiment of your brand is very important online. And I'll give you a short story that kind of makes an example of it. My dentist client, she's been with me for over 5 years now. She was number 2 when you would search for Murfreesboro dentist forever. Until the number 1 guy got arrested for malpractice.
Oh, wow.
Like, not malpractice, Medicare fraud. He was doing something fraudulent. And he got arrested and went to jail. And there was all this negative press. Like 2 days after that happened, he dropped from number 1 to like number 20.
Wow.
So Google says they don't do that, but they do. Like the general sentiment of your brand is a ranking factor. And so, I mean, it was good for my client because she's number 1.
Nice.
Yeah. But so if there is a scandal at your church or at your business, either try to minimize the effects of that digitally, or you have to be proactive in the future on putting out positive press releases and getting positive reviews and kind of overshadowing that negative reputation because it can hurt you digitally.
Yeah. Well, and the unfortunate thing is that if a scandal happens in the church world, that hurts you on so many levels beyond just your digital reputation.
Right.
And the sad thing is that a lot of churches are guilty of trying to cover it up. And, and obviously we're not saying cover it up. We're saying in your digital, the way you manage this digitally becomes really important.
Yes.
And so anyways, I think that's a good thing to point out. So reviews are important. So what's the next one, number 6?
So the sixth one is paid ads. And for us, that's Google ads. And really the reason that's important is because you can kind of pay your way to the top of the search results, especially for a local business. When you do a search, you're not just getting the organic search results, you're getting 3 different types of results. You're getting ads first, and then you're getting the map pack, which is a different algorithm than the organic results. So if you want to be on all 3, that's really ideal. So we do paid ads for our clients, and pay-per-click means every time somebody clicks on your ad, you're going to write Google a little mini check. There are things we can do to make the cost per click less, but it is an auction format. So if you've got 10 competitors in your area paying for, the keyword church near me, and they're willing to pay $5 a click, then you have to be willing to pay $5.01 a click to get to the, to get above them on the search results page.
Yeah, sure.
So it can be expensive, and Google knows what industry you're in and how much to charge commensurately. So in other words, if you're in the restoration business, or if you're, I think one of the highest ones is DUI attorney, you can pay upwards of $1,000 a click.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is a tremendous amount of money for one possible lead.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they know that, I mean, once that happens, you're in for 20 grand, no matter what. So, they know that the businesses can afford to pay that.
Yeah,
much.
That's how Google takes its commission almost. I mean,
right.
They know what the value of that lead is.
Yes.
Which, I mean, and this is why, Google, Facebook are multi-billion-dollar businesses.
Sure.
Because this is how their primary revenue stream is this right here.
Yes.
And that's, I've heard it said, and this can kind of maybe segue into something else. Google and Facebook, when it comes to ads, they'll gladly take your money.
Sure.
But it doesn't mean that ad spend, in this case, equates automatically results.
Right.
It's really good to have, kind of like we were talking off the mic, it's really good to have an expert who knows what they're doing to guide you through that. Because I think you and again, you said going into the Google dashboard in particular, I mean, it's insane. It doesn't make sense to the average person.
It's bonkers.
I mean, I consider myself a techie person, and I've seen the backside of that, and I'm like, I don't get this.
Yeah.
It's wild.
There's charts and numbers, and you can sort a million different ways, and it's complicated. And Google didn't get to be one of the largest corporations in the world by being super generous.
Yeah.
So, you have to go in and babysit your search terms, because they'll serve your ads for stupid searches.
Yeah.
Like if you're in the church space, I don't know, they might serve, if somebody searches for, cleaning company near me, they may serve your ad for that, and somebody might click on it.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of an extreme example, but you do have to get in there and babysit your keywords to make sure that you tell Google, hey, don't serve my ad for this because this doesn't make any sense. So, negative keyword management, optimizing the bidding, making bid adjustments based on time of day. So Google knows when somebody converts. You set up the conversions on the back end, but if somebody clicks on your ad and goes to your website and fills out a form, and you have it set up to track that, then Google knows when that conversion happened. So if you get 50% of your conversions for church on, Saturday night between 7 and 8 p.m., you can make bid adjustments to bid higher on Saturdays between 7 and 8 p.m. So there's all kinds of things that you can do to optimize that campaign. You just have to know what to do, and you have to be on top of it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing where most people fall down, is they start their Google Ads campaign and set it up, and then they just let it run.
Just let it go.
And they're, Google's charging them crazy money for ridiculous searches that have no bearing on their business.
And again, I don't do a lot with either of these, but I've heard that Facebook is the same.
Yes.
That that you've got to monitor those ads.
Yeah.
Basically, you can't just let them run, because they'll let you put them on autopilot.
Sure.
But again, they're just gladly taking your money.
Right.
And like I bet they didn't get to where they were for being super generous. Now, something I do know, to maybe counter that a little bit, is I do know that Google has some type of grant that they offer to nonprofits.
To nonprofits, yes, they do have a grant. I don't know exactly how it works.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that it's $1 for $1 grant. Like, you spend $500 and we'll give you $500. I can't imagine they just give you money.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I've heard somebody actually was talking about it recently. It's actually on a recent episode, but I don't remember us talking about it. But his church had used it, and anyways. But I mean, so they do that for nonprofits. If you're a church, you can take advantage of that. And I want to say he said there was a level of it that was free. That was like a hey, here's a however much credit you get, and I don't know if it was a monthly credit or a one-time credit or what. But either way, I'd say it's worth looking into. But the problem is that you don't, even though it's free ads, it doesn't guarantee results. And so what I would say to a church is, okay, if you're out there and you want to take advantage of that and you want to actually make that meaningful, because, hey, I mean, they're not cheap. The actual ad, the cost for the ads themselves.
Right.
Well, then you definitely want to look into getting somebody who knows what they're doing to make the best use of, that credit in this case.
Exactly. And that's just being a good steward of your money, is making sure that you're not spending it on silly stuff. Mm-hmm. And Google will absolutely allow you to spend your money on silly stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so this, and you're talking about your company specifically. You just focus on Google ads. You're not doing Facebook or anything.
We're not doing Facebook ads yet. We're thinking about. We're making the decision of whether or not to train somebody on Facebook ads, but it is so very complicated.
Yeah.
And I just don't know that it's a road we want to go down right now.
Yeah.
So maybe at some point.
And we were talking about this earlier, but again, I think it's before we were recording. What would be the difference in, like, here's why I would use Google over Facebook or Facebook over Google?
So Google is going to be at the very, very top of the funnel. So when somebody is searching for something that they want now, Google Ads is going to be the place to be. Facebook ads is better for a business or an industry that's more of a luxury item, where you're building that desire or you're building that brand recognition over a long period of time. So for example, I am a silent partner in a window coverings business, and we do fairly well on Google, but we also do fairly well on Facebook, because most people don't have like a window coverings emergency. So we build that desire for, roller shades or, shutters or whatever it's going to be on Facebook. And then eventually somebody will convert. Whereas if somebody searches for, window blinds now or window blinds near me, they're looking for that like right now. Maybe they bought a new house and they realize they look out their window and there's no coverings and they can see in their neighbor's window. And, so really, depending on the urgency of the need is where I would put Google or Facebook.
Gotcha. Okay. Because it would seem, and correct me if I'm wrong, that churches could benefit from both, but I can see how they would Google or benefit from the Google ads, because, like we said, people are Googling churches near me.
Yes.
Like, they want to know, they want to find a church in their area, because it is almost like an immediate need.
Yes.
Some people, they might take their time to research something, but, if they decide, we should go to church this Sunday, church is near me. Oh, yeah, boom, we're going to go to that one. So I would say Google Ads definitely something worth looking into and could be a good investment.
Yes, absolutely. For churches, for sure.
Yeah. So that's paid ads.
Yes.
And then this is the final step, right?
It's the final step. It's number 7, SEO, search engine optimization. And the reason that we put this last is because by its very nature, it's a long play. So I'm reading an SEO book right now, and the guy puts it very articulately and succinctly. And he says, you could pay me $5 million today, and I could not get you to the number 1 search result on Google today. That is not how it works. Google takes snapshots of the internet on a regular basis, and the way that they do ranking is by gauging your improvement digitally over a long period of time. So it would be like going to the gym and saying, all right, Mr. Trainer, here's $5 million. I want abs, which for me would be an impossibility.
Right here, same thing.
It doesn't work that way. It's consistent effort over a long period of time. And as long as you're showing consistency to Google and authority, then you should be trending in the right direction. Now, depending on your industry, depending on the competitiveness of your geography, that will determine how much effort you have to put into SEO. So like for Borough Business Lab, all of our packages are $299 a month. For SEO, we have something called SEO Plus. And that's like, if you're an insurance agent and you're in Nashville and you want to rank, $299 is not going to do it. You are wasting your money. It's going to be a $2,000 or $3,000 a month endeavor to rank well for those generic search terms in your geography, because it's so competitive. So the SEO package that we have really makes sure that your website is up to date. It's technically sound. It's loading fast. It's secure, because all of those are ranking factors. Like all of that.
And is mobile compatibility one now too?
Yes. Okay. I kind of assume that it's going to be mobile.
Yeah, I mean, what web platform isn't mobile compatible now?
Right, right. There are some.
I just remember, and I think it's been a few years ago, that's something that Google made a change in their algorithm.
Yes.
They said, hey, now it has to be mobile compatible to be ranked well or whatever.
Yes.
And churches, by the way, are one of the ones that are guilty of not having a mobile compatible website.
Yes, right. They still have like the Flash plugin, which I don't even think Apple uses that anymore. Yeah. So where were we? My train just derailed.
I derailed you there. We were talking about what you do, the factors that determine SEO, and I interjected mobile compatibility.
So the technical factors are ranking factor, and they're becoming more important as a ranking factor because everyone's searching from their phone, and so your website has to use smaller amounts of data to load quickly on your phone. Otherwise, you're going to bounce to the next website, and then Google thinks, oh, they searched for this, they went there. They left after 3 seconds. They obviously didn't find what they were looking for that keyword. So now you're down. They're going to degrade you. So all of those technical stuff, we manage all of that for our clients. We do the hosting, but also we create content on a monthly basis, which is relevant, keyword optimized content that's good for Google and it's good for people. And so we make sure that all of that is added to the website and optimized as well. So that's what we do, which once again, a lot of what we do is foundational stuff. If you are an insurance agent and let's talk about realtors. I turn realtors down who start talking about SEO because there's literally 10 multi-billion-dollar companies that we can't compete. We cannot compete with that. We can compete in some niche markets. Like one of our realtors, by using reviews and the online directories, he got $1 million listing. Wow. Somebody from California was looking to buy here and they searched for homes in his geography and he showed up and he had great reviews and they were like, well, we want to work with you. Yeah. But that was not SEO. They didn't find his website. They found his map information and then they looked at the reviews from there. So, depending on the competitiveness of your area and your industry, then SEO is something you have to do, but is it a foundational thing or is it something that you want to get a positive return on investment for? And so that's what that's one of the things that we coach our clients on is, are you looking to get a return on investment from this, or is this just something that you have to do to be viable digitally?
Gotcha.
So that's kind of where we are with the SEO stuff.
Yeah. So you talked about, your company creates content, and is that like blog content mainly?
Usually it's blog content. Sometimes if it's a larger business, we'll do service area pages. Like we'll write about projects that they've done in a specific neighborhood or in a specific city. So like if there's a roofer that covers 12 different cities, Manchester and Woodbury and Tullahoma and Winchester, we'll write a page for each of those cities about projects that he's done in those cities. Gotcha. So depending on what the goal is for the business, that will determine what type of content that we're going to write.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah. So and now SEO, let me put it this way. Let's say a church, a business, or organization of any kind, it's number 7 on the list. So let's say they weren't actively, being cautious about SEO because, fortunately, if you're using, for example, WordPress or Squarespace or Wix or one of these platforms, site builders, they're going to load fast, but by and large. And they have a lot of this technical stuff built in, So if a church was like, or like a business or anybody was just kind of like put that on autopilot, how safe are they, if you will? Like, how much attention should they pay to this? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Sure. So once again, it depends on the goal of the business or the church. If their goal is not to rank number 1 for the keyword Baptist Church in Murfreesboro, then I think they're safe to put it on autopilot to a certain extent. And you know this because you build websites for people. That website is a living organism. there's 10 or 12 different pieces of software, and they all get updated randomly, and you gotta make sure that they're playing nicely with each other. And so there's a lot that goes on to the background of it that ultimately could affect SEO. Mm-hmm. So you can to a certain extent. But because this is an ecosystem, some attention should be paid to it on a regular basis. Even if it's fairly minimal, like just making sure that your SSL certificate is active. I think a lot of places don't do that. And then you look at the website and they've got the little red danger sign, and then, people get scared. So, once again, it depends on your goals. If you want to be number one, you got to put some effort into it. Yeah. If you're cool working on other marketing campaigns that are not focused so heavily on SEO, then focus on those and just make sure your website's, healthy.
Because what, like I said, you've kind of got these listed as priorities. And they to some extent, they do build on each other. Yes. But it also ensures, going back to kind of what we're talking about there in the social media email list, it ensures that you have a level of diversity, if you will, in your marketing efforts. Yes. Like, hey, we're not just putting all of our effort on social media or one platform. We are, we start with the Google listing, and now we've got our website, and now we've got our social media presence, email list, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And that way, if something happens for whatever reason, like you said, a scandal breaks out at the church, God forbid, and now, your reviews aren't playing very well for you. Sure. Well, you've at least got these other 6 areas. Well, that's probably going to be a hit, but at least you've got these other 6 areas that you're doing something in.
Yes.
And I think that's, just in general, a good mindset to keep. Again, it's just to be diversified. Don't put everything, all your effort into one channel, one outlet. Even like, for example, with this podcast, we have this podcast is distributed on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the different platforms. And then we also put a version on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram or IGTV or whatever, so that we have it everywhere. That way, if something happens and, extreme YouTube goes down for a day, which doesn't happen much anymore, but
right.
It has happened.
It has.
Hey, at least you can go to another place, or for some reason, like there was something a few months back where Apple's podcast did break. Like a lot of people's podcast feeds broke. Well, at least you could find it somewhere else.
Right.
And I think the same idea applies here. Like, even if something goes wrong in one area, the likeliness of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the likeliness of like every area or multiple areas going wrong at once is pretty low.
It's very low. Yes.
But at least if something goes wrong here, you've got it taken care of in the other 6 places.
Yeah. And it is like any asset that you have, whether it's your physical asset of your body, or whether it's your investment assets, you have to diversify them. Like if I were going to work out and I only did curls, I would look stupid. I would have this big bicep and be small everywhere else.
Yeah.
So you have to diversify and make sure that the whole system is healthy, not just one little piece of it. Yeah. And so, like, one of my scariest things to hear is somebody who's saying, well, we're on Facebook and that's it. Well, no, that's not healthy. That's bad. Just like if all of your 401k is in Enron, you might be a little young to remember.
No, I remember. I know enough to know Enron is not good.
No, Enron is bad, yes. If all of your 401k is in Enron, you'll lose. Yeah. So diversify. And that's what we do, is we build a strong digital foundation for our clients.
Yeah. I know somebody in this business, and actually I was talking to you about, I personally had this experience a little bit, to some extent, things are about who you know. You have an organic network of people you already know. And so for me, like, hey, I was kind of telling you, like, I kind of hit my lid on that network. Everybody who knew me and knew what I did, they kind of got word, and they either made the decision if they were going to do business with me or not. But I'm thinking of one person I know in particular who I've tried to talk to him about some of this. He's got a similar business that I do. And, I've tried to say, hey, you might want to think, because, he'll just do Instagram. And he's like, well, I'm cool on Instagram, and I've got, he's talking about how he's got, I got contacts from this source and whatever. And, it's like, hey, man, one day that's going to run dry.
Yeah.
And I think I have even seen churches do that to some extent, because, well, hey, I'm starting a church and, I know this guy and whatever. And to some extent, there is that personal connection network that needs to continue to expand. Mm-hmm. But again, this digital is part of it. You're going to be able to convert people from being digital only to actually being now part of your physical community.
Right. Yes. It's like anything. You have to tend to your field. We'll use a church reference of harvest. You got to have multiple different plants. Mm-hmm. You got to have multiple different fields. You have to make sure it's diversified. And you can make some money, or you can grow your church if you're just on one platform, but it's not stable and it's not healthy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, making sure you diversify all your stuff is super, super important. Yeah.
Well, this has been really helpful. I've enjoyed. I'm just like learning here. I'm like, oh yeah, I need to do that. This is good. Any closing final thoughts or anything we need to?
So just closing thoughts are to your audience, you're in good hands with Luke. I've known you for a long time, and you've been doing this more than 5 years now, right?
Yeah. Just actually technically 5 years this month.
Yeah. So, 5 years is kind of that break point of, are you just trying this or are you in this for the long haul? And you're in this for the long haul. So congratulations on that. And, I know that you take care of your clients and you look after their needs. In fact, I was thinking about this on the way over. I'm technically a client of yours.
Oh, that's right.
I am. Yeah. Yes. I still got one Divvy license.
That's right. I sub-licensed that too. Yes. Yeah. I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
Right. And you're doing that the right way. Like there's a lot of people can do that in a shady way, and you're doing it the right way. So, I would just say, you're in good hands with Luke. And if you want to find out more about me or my business, it's burrowbusinesslab.com. That's BORO businesslab.com. And we're, there's 3 of us, and we're trying to help people.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm for sure going to add links to the show notes so everybody can, know where to find these resources, learn more about you. Appreciate the kind words there. And I'm just glad to have people like you in my network, because I will get, like I said, a lot of what I know about SEO is from you. A meeting we had years ago where you kind of walked me through the basics. I was like, oh yeah, that's how that, I'm not an expert by any means, but I at least understand the foundational principles. Which is helpful when you're making websites and stuff. So it's great to have guys like you in my network, so I can be like, hey, I got a question here or whatever, and it's been good. So thanks for being with us.
Cool. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.